All right, we're live. We're recording. All right. What's up, everybody? This is a new thing that we're trying. It is a podcast called Big Stick Policy. Obviously, we had to choose that name. But basically, premise of it is every episode gonna be like half hour long. We're just gonna talk about fucking presidents. You know. So we're gonna go order. So I'm here with my co-host Graham. Say hi to the people, Graham.
What's going on, fellas?
Hey,
I hope you guys enjoy this.
yeah. Obviously, we're gonna go through a lot. There's 46 presidents as of right now, as of the time of recording. So we're gonna try to make an episode on all of them, from the incredibly famous, like today's subject, George Washington and like Teddy Roosevelt and your boy FDR, to the completely uh, insane, like Andrew Jackson and again Teddy Roosevelt, and then to the ones that nobody knows, like Franklin Pierce and like Chester Arthur. That dude had mud chops. You ever see his facial hair?
Hey, he looked cute as hell,
He
honestly.
looks. Oh my God! Someone just fell. That's wonderful. Great way to great way to start it. So obviously we're going in chronological order. We're gonna start with George Washington. So Graham, let me ask you something. When I mention George Washington, what comes to mind to you?
Just a honestly solid ass dude, solid
Solid
ass
as dude.
president. I
Yeah.
mean, they call him the dad of America. We had a lot of founding fathers, but he's like the father figure
Yeah.
of
Would
the
you
United States of
would you
America.
say that he's the American dad?
I would say he's the American dad.
Is that what they
I
based the
would
show
say
off of?
he's the greatest to ever do it.
Yeah.
He is the Michael Jordan
Well,
of
he
America.
kind of just made it. He made the
He
office a
did.
thing.
He made America.
Yeah, dude. So little thing on George Washington. He's Revolutionary War general, commander in chief of the Continental Army. Obviously, huge role. He plays a huge role in American history. The dude fights in this war. He basically just stalls out the British. Right, the British, they're like trying to attack him, and he just runs away. But he just keeps running, and they keep trying to chase him, and the British eventually just like give up because they don't want to deal with it anymore. They're like, screw it, we're going home. And then George Washington wins, and he's all like, yeah, I'm gonna go retire to my home in Virginia, right? And so when they're making a government, right, they're like, yo, we gotta have a president because as much as we don't like strong chief executives, we gotta have one. Not like a king, but like a just a chill dude who knows what he's doing. So they're like, yo, who are we gonna choose? And Graham, you know who they chose? You know who they
So they
chose?
kind of looked around the room.
They looked
You
around the
look at
room.
John Adams, kind
Dude,
of a solid figure. He's okay.
dude
He's
looks
like
like a mole rat,
seven
but
out
he's
of
not
10.
leading the
You get to
country.
you get to Jefferson, pretty solid dude. I would say he's like an 8 out of 10. You look
Yeah,
around, you look at Hamilton.
yeah.
Oh God. Well,
Oh,
one thing,
you're
he's
not a
not
Hamilton fan?
American.
You're not a Hamilton fan?
Second, no, I'm not a big Hamilton fan. I'll
You
be
don't like
straight
him?
up.
All right.
And I would say he's like a 5 out of 10. I'll be
Five out of
straight.
10, 5 out of
So they're
10.
looking
Ooh,
they're looking around the room, and they see George Washington.
yeah,
And as we said before, he's a father figure.
yeah,
He's a great man.
great man. And this is kind of the story. He's the American dad. He shows up. He's like, I don't want to do this, but if y'all want me to do it, I'm gonna do it. So he just kind of does it, and they're like, yeah, we got this cool guy. He was very like soft spoke. Like, about his teeth. His teeth
I've
weren't
heard about
real.
them.
They're fake. He had fake teeth. The homie was chilling with fake teeth. He had the dentures in. But he becomes president, in like 1789, right? And he's just kind of there, like mostly what he does is establish what the president can do. So, what does he do first? He gets in office. He's like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm gonna get some other people to come up with me, come up in my crib, if you will, and um, help him out. So he gets cabinet. He gets a cabinet together, and this is where the cabinet comes in because cabinet ain't in the Constitution. This is something Washington makes, right? So he gets what's he get like? I don't know. The big ones. Big ones you gotta know. All right, you got Secretary of State Thomas Jefferson, and you get Secretary of Treasury Alexander Hamilton. There's two other guys. I think there's Henry Knox. He's the Secretary of War.
Correct.
And then who's the other guy? Is that the Attorney General? Is it like Edmund
Probably.
Randolph? I think it's Edmund Randolph.
Yeah,
his
that
name.
sounds.
All right, so they're kind of there, but the big ones you gotta know are Jefferson is Secretary of State and Treasury. No, bleh. And Alexander Hamilton is Secretary of the Treasury. And here's the thing about them two. They really don't like each other. They really don't. To the point where they become the leaders of opposing political parties. Because Hamilton, he's like, yo, I don't like you, Jefferson. I'm gonna make the Federalists and have all my Federalists not like you. And then Jefferson's like, I don't like you. I'm gonna have my Democratic Republicans, support me and not like you. So they're always like button heads. And Washington's an independent. He's the only real independent president. Even though he does tend to side with the Federalists more than often, he really is, just the man of the people. Because everyone loves him. Like, there's no one who doesn't love him. He's just kind of there. He's vibing, and he really he just kind of establishes the precedence of what the office is going to hold. Like, because everyone's like, what the hell does a president do? So, all right. So, main things you gotta know about Washington. What should we talk about next? You want to do Whiskey
Definitely,
Rebellion?
I think we kind of, we should definitely hit on the Whiskey
Yeah.
Rebellion.
Yeah. What do
I
you
think
wanna
that was
hit
a
first?
real big,
Yeah.
honestly, one of the first issues that the presidency faces.
Yeah.
And one of the problems is it was a big fight between federal and state government.
Yeah.
Both were kind of like, the federal government's like, we're here to establish authority, while the state government was kind of like, well, we don't want another monarchy. We kind of want to do our own thing. And as
Do
you were
their
saying
own
before,
thing.
Hamilton kind of sides with the federal government, while Jefferson sides with the state government.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing is with the Whiskey Rebellion is a lot of farmers, they don't want to pay taxes, and
On
they
their
rebel, they
whiskey,
riot
because they're
And-
whiskey farmers.
because they're whiskey. And to the federal government, this
Whiskey farmers.
is really, really bad, because if you look at it from an outside source,
Yeah.
from another foreign invading country, you can see kind of just a country divided among itself. And honestly, if you're a foreign country, you would be, hey, if they're all divided, it'd be really easy just to come in, and they're still a weak nation that's still trying to form. You could swoop in, take over again, and take advantage of this time.
Mhm.
So the federal government, George Washington,
Yeah.
they need to act really fast. They need to quell the rebellion. They need to solve the problem, because if they don't, they're going to lose control of the country that they've just formed.
Yeah.
So, there's differing opinions. Hamilton's like, we should go in, whole cavalry, kill them all, set an example. Jefferson's like, whoa, I mean, they're like our people, so we shouldn't
Yeah.
really be doing that. We should be, either trying to reason with them, or we should try and help them. We're definitely not going that route that Hamilton went. So what ended up happening is Washington goes down with the militia to quell the rebellion,
Yeah.
and he controls it, which is honestly why he's one of the better presidents, because he was able to handle the situation. They said that he showed up and everybody just stopped. Everybody stopped.
Dude.
And one of the more
Oh, here you go.
sorry,
you go,
one
you
of the
go.
more important things I think that was also is that, so we'll talk about this more in further presidents, but the power to pardon is a very important power of the president.
Mm.
And one of the things I think is the most interesting is that the leaders of the Whiskey Rebellion, and you could even say they committed acts of treason,
Mm-hmm. It was a rebellion against the government.
is a great example for a president to set. I think, it's very forgiving, but he's still showing a lot of strength as a president.
You cut out there. What did you say?
I was talking about how he pardoned the leaders of the Whiskey Rebellion.
Oh, yeah.
And I
yeah.
thought that this was a really good move by the first president, because it shows that he is still very strong. He has the executive power, but it shows, that he's a forgiving leader, that he's someone that, wants to help the people. He doesn't want to punish the people.
Mhm.
And I just think that the way he handled the Whiskey Rebellion was just a really good way to handle it as the first president
Dude,
and to set an example.
that was beautiful, man.
Thank you.
I'm getting a tear to my eye. You talking about the Whiskey Rebellion and George Washington, God, but you're absolutely right. The dude was a trendsetter. He's like the Tom Brady of presidents, He's the GOAT, And then, so what else did he do? So we talked about cabinet, we talked about Whiskey Rebellion. He doesn't have too many issues going in because it's mostly just kind of setting up the country. So, what's some other cool stuff that happens under Washington? Hamilton's financial plan gets passed. As much as you like to shit on Hamilton, Graham, I gotta say his financial plan kind of a banger. Kind of a banger.
He makes okay.
What do you mean? All right. So we're broke in the beginning of the country. Obviously, we're getting out of war. We borrowed a crap load of money to fight the war, like from other countries, like France. They helped us out a lot. They kind of go off the rails a little bit after, but at the time they were cool. They were cool at the time. But yeah, so we're broke. So Hamilton's like, we gotta get that money, man. We gotta get that money. So he makes this whole plan, right? He establishes like a bank. He establishes what else? He established some taxes. He formulates this whole plot to, I think, bonds. He uses bonds.
Bonds are a big part of it.
He gives bonds to people, and then eventually he's like, hey, you give us this money, we'll give you that money back later, and we'll give you more money than you got. So all the people who buy the bonds, they're like, I bet, that sounds pretty like a pretty good deal. So he gets a bunch of money that way, and he ultimately uses that to, what else did he do? He establishes a uniform federal currency, because before that, the states all had their own money. So you had like the New Jersey dollar, or like the Virginia dollar, and they're all worth different things. So he's like, screw that, and he just makes the U.S. dollar and the U.S. currency, And that really big turning point in the early stages of the country. Without that, I think we would have gone broke, bro. We would have no money. We would be lacking in the fat stacks. But now we're not. Well, you can probably make the argument that we still are. But we gained some fat stacks through that. Through Hamilton. For real. So yeah, that's cool. That happens under Washington. And Washington's like, yo, you're playing Hamilton. It's aight. So he pretty much supports it. Which is pretty solid. He's just kind of there. Washington often takes back seats to Congress. Because Congress is Congress. You gotta let them do their own thing. You gotta let Washington do his own thing. So yeah, he's just a really good leader in that way. So what's some other cool stuff about Washington that we talk about?
I think a big thing was definitely his farewell speech. I feel like that was a huge part of his presidency. I mean, it was the first of all farewell speeches, but he really sets a lot of precedents. And one of the most important, I think, is we were talking about it before, about how Washington was really the first true independent, while Hamilton and Jefferson had their warring parties. But a big thing was how he was the independent, but he also, for one thing, he really did not want political parties to form, because he really thought that would really, as he was saying before, how when they had to deal with the Whiskey Rebellion, he was afraid of a divided nation. They worked so hard to bring this country together, to make it theirs, just to get it split up by differing ideas on how the government should be run, how people should live their lives. And I think that it's apparent that we didn't follow his instructions, and we have political parties to today. But it's important to show that, he kind of saw forward, that you can clearly see today that there is a huge divide between political parties, and Washington really wanted to warn against that. And I think another big thing in his speech was definitely the idea of staying neutral.
Mm.
And we talked about how, the United States, when they were fighting Britain, they were somewhat allies with France because Jefferson had a lot of connections with France. And Washington, though he appreciated that help, was kind of like, hey, we kind of need to break off, not because, we hate France, but just because, one, we don't want to be dependent upon another foreign nation, but also, like, what happens when Britain sees that we're friends with France? Are they going to try and go to war with us again, or will another country that doesn't like France take us as an ally and thinking attacking us will get to France?
Mm.
And so a big thing was just kind of cutting ties off. And unfortunately, Jefferson did kind of maintain those connections. But the whole overall point was that Washington was like, hey, we're our own nation. We built this. It's ours. We don't need other people's help. We should just break off ties. We should be neutral to just. And the other thing was that we're still a forming nation. And he was afraid of, well, with allies and adversaries, like they're going to take advantage of a developing nation. They're going to want our resources, the
Mm-hmm.
connections we have. And he was just, as long as we stay neutral, we kind of stay out of all the fights. Like no one's going to have a reason to fight us as long as we stay neutral.
Oh yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. Another thing with the neutrality, what you're saying is that we really could not afford to go into another war, especially you're a developing nation. You're broke. You're broke as hell. It's like a college student. You have no money, so you really gotta avoid all of those issues. Focus on yourself, and just kind of roll with things. Just kind of make your thing going. So, that's great. That's great about Washington. Washington really sets those trends. Another thing that he sets, and this is extremely, extremely important to me, or at least, well, yeah, it's extremely important to me and the country as a whole, is the precedent of the two-term limits. So, another thing is Washington's like after his second term, he didn't really want a second term anyway. But everyone was like, hey, come in, you did a good job. Why don't we reelect you? We'll do another election. He gets elected, like, no problem. He's super popular. But after 2 terms, he's like, dude, I'm done with this shit. He does not want power. And that's why I think he's the greatest person who could have been the first president, because he doesn't want that power. He just wants to go to his home and his plantation with all his plantation stuff and slaves. He did own slaves. That's kind of whack, but I don't know. We'll talk. We'll definitely get into slavery later when we get into like when it really like heats up, like mid 1800s. We're talking Civil War. We'll get all to that, all that juicy stuff. But right now we gotta focus on Washington. So Washington, he's like, I want to go home. It's like that song from SpongeBob, where Sandy's like, I want to go home, oh, oh, oh. And because she's from like Texas and she's living under the sea. What the fuck you doing, squirrel? Anyway, so he's like, I want to go home. I'm done with y'all goofy politicians. I'm out of here. So they're like, what the hell are we gonna do now? We just lost our leader. And so that's when re-election happens. And coincidentally enough, Washington's vice president, John Adams, wins the presidency. Now, who becomes vice president then? So, very interesting enough is Thomas Jefferson. He runs against Adams, and he becomes the runner-up for the presidency. So back then, you didn't actually have like a presidential like ticket in the modern sense where you would choose a running mate. See, the vice president would be the person who got the second most amount of votes. So Thomas Jefferson, Democratic Republican, becomes the vice president of John Adams, who was a Federalist. So that becomes very problematic for those two going forward because they're like originally friends, but then like over time they kind of like don't like each other. And then when they're old and they don't really care anymore, they start to renew those good bonds of friendship. So yeah, back again. Washington establishes the 2-term limit. or the precedent, because you see, there has only been one president who has served more than 2 terms, that being the boy FDR, who actually is elected to 4, cannot fully serve his 4th because he dies in office. So, yeah, after that, they kind of, because it's just like a tradition. Before the they kind of rule into law that the president can only serve 2 terms, but yeah, everyone pretty much sticks to that unless they get like voted out. Like John Adams only serves 1 term, which because he gets beaten by Jefferson, who becomes the 3rd president. So yeah, so for the most part, everything it kind of sticks to that, and Washington's really a trendsetter in that sense. So yeah, that's pretty cool. What do you think of the 2 term limit, Graham?
I think, as you said before, I think it's a very important precedent. And you notice with a lot of presidents that come afterwards, like Adams and Jefferson, how they really try and kind of copy Washington, because Washington was, like, as we said before, the greatest president. And everybody, they try and copy him. They came from nothing. They don't really want the position as president. They really want to help the people, and everybody tries to copy him. And then it comes to the part where the 2-term president, and a lot of people don't touch that until FDR, out of respect
Mm-hmm.
and out of good conscience. And I just think it's also a really good idea, because Washington really does show how much of a good leader he is, because he could have kept being president, and at that point it would have kind of became a dictatorship. And
He
he
could
sets
have
a
been
really good precedent.
he could have been a king if he wanted. Like
He
they
could have
offered
been a
it up.
king.
He's like,
They
hey,
wanted him to be king,
they wanted to be
honestly,
king, but he's like, nah.
but he was like, "Nah, it's not
We
me."
just had that. I ain't becoming King George the Fourth. Like,
Exactly. You don't want a king right when you've broken away from one.
Yeah,
So I think it's just really important, as you were saying, how he sets that precedent,
yeah,
and why he goes down as one of the better presidents. Because I think if we had someone else like Adams or Jefferson, they might have just wanted to hold on to that power for as long as they could.
oh yeah. And unfortunately, Washington, after he exits office, he does not really last. Like he lives a few years just on his plantation, doing his own thing while Adams runs thing over. But he eventually dies. I think 1799, I believe, is when he dies. Either that or 1800. But he kind of just passes away at his plantation, and everyone's like sad about it because he was the American dad. He's the founding father. And his influence cannot be understated. Because I mean, like the goddamn capital is named after this guy,
That's
and
true.
a state.
And the state,
They got a state too.
and they got a bunch of they got a quarter, and they got a dollar.
Yeah, he's on the dollar. He's on the quarter, bro. He's on the quarter. So yeah, like
Crazy.
the dude is literally money. He's literally cash money.
Makes sense.
Absolutely makes sense. Yeah, when you're on a piece of currency, you've done something right. That's why I'm trying to get on a piece of currency.
I feel that.
I'm trying to get on the 25th dollar bill.
Good luck, bro. I got faith.
You got faith? You got faith in me?
I got faith.
Graham, if you could be on a coin, what kind of coin would you be on?
That's a tough one.
This is a
Now
tough
you're
one.
saying, do I replace a coin, or do
Nah,
I just come with my
you
own?
can replace one. You can make your own, bro. What do you want? What do you want? What do you want in life? Tell me.
Now this is just a personal thing, but I think I'd want to be on like a 15-cent or 16-cent coin, and this is why I've had a personal experience. Whenever I'm paying in cash,
Yeah.
like 9 times out of 10, the change is always 15 cents, and I never have
Really?
15 cents on me. Like
You want?
never 15
Yeah.
cents. Like I'm buying food, or I'm buying something online, and the change is always 15 cents, and it's
So
annoying. It's
yeah.
annoying because I don't have that change on me, or either I have like a quarter, or I don't have perfect change, and I don't know. It just bothers me.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'd want to be on the 15-cent,
So
because I would use that so much.
say if you were on a 15-cent coin, right? You go to pay with something. Would you say you have you on the 15 cent that's on you?
100%.
Oh yeah.
Actually, you know what? I would hand them the
Yeah.
coin, and I'd see if they would realize that I'm
that
on
it's
that
you.
coin. I think that would be hilarious.
Do,
And if they don't, then I think I would just leave because I'd be hella sad.
do you think there's currency nowadays where the guy who's on the currency is still alive and he goes to like pay for something and they're like, "Oh, yo, that's that's you."
That would be hilarious. But I don't know if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure like you have to be dead before they could put you on
I
currency,
mean,
right? I don't
you
know.
got to be important. I don't know if
Yeah,
you
you definitely have
necessarily
to be important. I mean, they
dead.
don't put any losers on money
Oh yeah, you know, you already
because
know
that would be
that.
pointless.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah,
I don't know about like foreign countries though. Like
I don't know what they do either.
I
I've
got
got
like some dollar from Costa Rica. It's just got like a shark on it. No person, just a shark.
I've got a British pound.
Does it have someone on it, or is it
I think it's
just
got Churchill on it.
that's hype?
Pretty sure. I don't know where it is. I can't use it. I don't live in
That's
England, so
I don't live in Costa Rica, so
oh. What do you need? How much do you think that's worth in like U.S. money? Your Costa Rican thing.
definitely like 2 cents. Like
Definitely
it
like
can't be worth much.
it's
It
not
can't
worth
be.
anything.
It can't be worth. It says like 2,000 on it, but it's got to
Yeah.
be worth like 2 cents here.
Oh yeah, dude, it's definitely like worthless. It's like I don't know. You know who has a bad currency?
Venezuela.
Yeah, dude, I'm just gonna say that thing's. You know how they've been having the whole like GameStop squeeze, and they're like, we're gonna
Yeah.
bring GameStop to the moon, or we're gonna bring
Yeah.
AMC. Yeah, Venezuela was like to their currency, was like, yeah, we're gonna bring that to the goddamn center of the earth. That's how down we're gonna go with that. You know,
And you see how they turned out.
you see how I feel bad for them. You know,
I do feel bad for them.
you gotta. I don't know. We gotta give them food. They're lacking
Shout out to
food.
Venezuela.
Shout out to Venezuela. Yes.
Everybody hustling out there.
If you do, if you actually, I'm gonna plug this. If you can, I don't know, if there's something out there, you can help Venezuelans. I
They
don't
have to
know.
have a Venmo or something, or like a GoFundMe page. Just a few dollars.
Send them some money. They might be
It
able
means
to.
a lot to them.
You might be able to get something. Send them some money. Send them, I don't know. Just do your part. Help out. You see people who need help. You gotta help out. I think that'll really brighten someone's mood. But yeah. So back to Washington. Obviously, we don't have too much time left. So let's kind of closing thoughts, Graham, on Washington. What do you think of him overall?
So I was ranking people before, and I gotta say, Washington, 10 out of 10. We can't say it enough that I think he's the perfect president. I thought he was amazing. First, like he is probably the best president that could have gone first.
Yeah.
He sets a lot of precedents. He really shows what it means to be president. He's not a dictator. He doesn't end up being a monarch. He shows responsibility. He's a forgiving leader, but still shows strength at the same time. I just think overall, he was a well-rounded president who did his job the best he could possibly do.
Yeah. I agree. I think Washington, given the circumstances, did the best that he could. Early in life, he fought in the British military. He wasn't very, I guess, good in terms of that. Like he wasn't the most effective leader at that point. But over time, after obviously fighting against the British and helping defend the country, he becomes a great leader. He becomes a really great leader. Probably the best one we could have gotten. Like if someone else was the president at the time, I don't think it would have worked out because Washington's like the only like universally loved national figure at the time, because national figures in early American history, they're few and far between. There's not too many of them. So really having him in that place of leadership is, I think definitely solidified the U.S. going forward. He established some of our core values, obviously, in terms of government and all the precedents he set as president that the next 45 would pretty much follow,
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he really, really did a great job. Well, I gotta say, that's it for the first episode of Big Stick Policy. We'll be back at probably next week, I'm thinking. The next episode will be ready to go. And, that's kind of all we got. So here we are.
Sir.
Big Stick Policy. Signing
Big Stick
off.
Policy.
Episode
Signing
1.
off.